Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Social Service and Scrutiny Committee. I'd like to read the following to you. This meeting will be recorded and made available to view via the Council's website, except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images, audio of those individuals speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the Council's website at www.caerphilly.gov.uk. On the first agenda item, firstly, can we have a roll call, please, Kath?
Yes, Chair. Members, when I call out your name, the Scrutiny Committee members, so please just confirm your attendance. Councillor Angel, not here yet. Councillor Bevan, not here. Councillor Bazina, not here. Councillor Bishop.
I'm here.
Councillor Cushion.
Here, I just have to warn you to let you know that I've had a bad connectivity message come up on my thing, so I might get bumped out. If I do, I'll endeavour to rejoin as soon as possible. And as the Vice Chair is not here as yet, I don't know whether or not we should nominate somebody to step into the breach if I get knocked out, or should we just wait? Will you postpone the meeting until I come back in?
Chair, we'll give you a few minutes to come back in. If you're having connections, if you can email, and then I can take a vote on nomination for somebody to step in as the chair.
Okay, then, lovely. It's just a message just popped up on my screen.
Okay. Councillor Etheridge.
Present.
Councillor Evans.
Present.
Councillor Guy's not here. Councillor Gale is not here. Councillor Haas is not here. We've had apologies from Councillor James. Councillor Jeremiah.
Yeah, here.
Councillor Leonard. I can see she's here. Councillor Skivens.
Yeah.
Councillor Thomas.
Present.
And Councillor Williams.
Present.
We have the Cabinet Member, Councillor Cook.
Present.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so we've only got one apology noted then, is that correct, Kath?
That's correct, Jay.
Okay, then we've got, sorry.
Excuse me, I'm here, but I didn't get my name called.
Oh, apologies, Michelle. Yeah, Michelle Jones, co-opted member.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, we're going to item 2 then, declarations of interest.
Councillor Jeremiah's got his hands up, Chair.
Oh, sorry. I do apologise, Councillor. Bear with me a second. I need to flick back to the screen. Yeah, Councillor?
Yes, no problem. It's just to make you aware that I'll have to leave this meeting at 7 because I've got another meeting that starts at the same time, okay?
Okay, no problems.
Okay.
Right, item 2, declarations of interest. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and or prejudicial interest in respect of any item of business on this agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Are there any declarations? I personally, have to make a declaration on item 9 of the agenda. It's a personal declaration.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Williams, I make a declaration of interest on agenda 9.
Okay, any further declarations? I think we got somebody else waiting in the guest room.
Yeah, Rihanna James, Chair.
Okay, then we'll move then on to item 3 is to approve and sign the following minutes. Social Services Scrutiny Committee held on the 15th of June 2021. Right, I'm going to go through page by page for accuracy. So bear with me a second. Page 1. Page 2. page 3, page 4, and page 5. Can we please have a seconder, proposer and a seconder, please?
I move, Chair.
I second, Chair. Councillor Williams.
Okay, then can we show the forms up then? Right. So if we can vote for, against, or abstain, and then submit, please. Somebody's got their hand up. Councillor Steve Skivins, sorry.
Yeah, the voting box is not coming up. It looks like I'm in as a guest for some reason.
Would you like to give a verbal then, please, Steve?
Yeah, sure. It's a 4.
Okay, thanks.
That's moved then, Chair.
Okay, then. Right, we need to go on to item 4, consideration of any matters referred to this committee in accordance with the call-in procedure. Do we have any matters called in today then, Kath?
Nothing, Chair.
Okay, then can we now move then to item 5, which is the Social Services Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme. I'd like to hand this over now to the Scrutiny Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Much appreciated. I'd just like to highlight to members, we've got the next meeting of the committee is on the 12th of October. We have 4 items listed for there. It's the period 5 budget report 21-22, the annual corporate safeguarding report, and Iron Bevan Health Board have confirmed they will be able to make a presentation, and we have the COVID-19 update. I wanted to highlight to members that it's been suggested that the day services report, which is planned for the 23rd of November, be brought forward to the October meeting. If that's the case, something from the October meeting will have to be moved either to November or changed to an information item. So if members are happy to move day services to October, would somebody like to propose, I don't know if Dave wants to come in on what item from October could be moved.
Yeah, Dave. And I think we've got a couple of questions as well on the forward work plan once, you know, this has been discussed. Thanks, Dave.
It's no problem moving anything that's on the forward work programme. Clearly, Chair, we were aware that it was council or committee rather that asked for the COVID-19 update. Quite happy to switch to that with day services. COVID is very much an ongoing issue that we're dealing with. I think I would be reluctant to move put the budget report into an information item. I think we did that with period 3, so we probably need to discuss period 5, and certainly the annual corporate safeguarding report. I think it is something I would be reluctant to defer. So my advice to you as a committee is basically to swap the day services report for the COVID update.
Okay, are we all happy? I know we've got some questions on the forward work plan, but are we all happy for that to proceed? That the COVID update will swap to November and day services will come in October's meeting. Do we need to take a vote on this, Kath?
Chair, perhaps members could indicate quickly on their hands up to show they generally approve that before we move to a vote on the end.
Okay, then can people put their hands up if they're happy with this to proceed, that we make that change? How many have we got, Kath? I think it's a majority.
Yeah, most people are happy with that, Chair.
Right, lovely. Could you all put your hands down? Apart from the 2 members, I know I've got a question actually on the forward work programme, which I'm actually allowing discretionary indication as chair for this meeting. I'm allowing these 2 questions. There will be no subsequent conversation or discussion on it. It's just these 2 questions. And first, Kevin, would you like to ask your first question, please?
Yes, thank you. My question is to the cabinet member. I'd just like to say the cabinet forward work programme refers to significant changes regarding the day services, and if we also look at agenda item 7 on page 82, it says modernisation of day services. So that is on the agenda of this meeting twice. As you know, I've had concerns raised to me, and I've had people saying that they would like to speak on this item when it comes before scrutiny and cabinet. We've heard tonight that this is going to be moved forward from November until the 12th of October, which I welcome. But I do really feel that the cabinet member should make a comment. I'm pleased that no day services centres will be closed. And what I'd like to ask, Chair, is that the scrutiny committee have a detailed briefing prior to the meeting on the 12th of October. And that will cover everything, the results of the questionnaires, etc., families. And so I'd like to move that, please, as a motion, that we have a detailed briefing prior to the 12th of October where we can ask questions. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got one other comment, question to be asked by Councillor Steve Skivens. Steve, if you'd like to ask your question, please.
I fully support Kevin's query there. I have also been approached by a number of people with concerns, but my point is slightly at variance in as much as the issue about transportation support to care services has come into question as well. So there's 2 parts to the question, really. Has this provision been changed? Because a number of parents and guardians are informing me that the provision has been reduced or withdrawn. You know, it's quite clear under the 2014 Care Act that where parents or guardians have difficulties, then the local authority should support with transportation needs for vulnerable people to care services. So can we include comment on this area, both in the briefing paper and perhaps in the discussion that we have in October, because I think there's a pressing need. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got really 3 queries there from 2 members. Firstly is a detailed report, which actually both members wish to have prior to the October meeting. And also regarding the transportation. And I think you'd like some comment from either the cabinet member or from Director of Social Services regarding the issues brought up. So would Councillor Shane Cook like to comment, or would Dave Street like to make any comments on what's just been brought up? We will not have any further discussion on this matter, just comments. And if you finish your questions, could you please put your hands down?
I'm happy to come in, Chair, if that's okay with you.
Okay, and I think Councillor Cook has got his hands up as well.
I'll defer to Councillor Cook then, Chair. I can come back in if I need to.
Okay then. Shane, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Regarding Councillor Etheridge, have you got a question? Or is it just regarding the process of the report before scrutiny that you wish to have?
Yeah, I would like to see the process before scrutiny. You know, I could make a lot of comments, Shane. I've got a lot of questions, but I shan't make them now until I've seen the report. But I would like scrutiny.
I don't think now is the appropriate time anyway to make them, Kevin, until we've actually scrutinised the report anyway. Okay, yes. Shane, if you'd like to say something. I think it's about having a copy of the report prior to the meeting of October.
I'm just a bit confused.
Perhaps I should step in.
Sorry, Dave. Go on, Dave.
I mean, you know, as far as Councillor Etheridge's request, don't think it's a problem. I mean, obviously you'd have the report 7 days in advance anyway, so we would expect the report to be as detailed as you need it to be. I'll just check with the monitoring officer with regard to some sort of briefing prior to scrutiny. It's not something I've ever come across before, but I don't think it would be a major issue. And going back to Councillor Scrivens' questions around transport, we'll be sure that we'll pick those up in any report that comes forward, Councillor Scrivens. Sorry, Shane.
No, I do. I was just going to pretty much say the same thing, and that if Councillor Scrivens, if you send me the question regarding transportation, I can get you an answer. Is that okay?
Yeah. I thought the question was quite clear that I put across, but if you want me to email it to you separately, then I'll do that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so everybody now, you know, you can put your hands down if you want on this particular issue, because I think we've come to an end on that particular subject. However, we need to vote on the forward work plan with the amendment set forth that the daycare services now will come up in October and that COVID-19 will come up in November. Can we have a proposer and a seconder on this item, please, to agree it, and then we'll go to forms to vote on it, please. No proposer or seconder? Oh,
I
Steve?
propose, Chair.
And Alan. Alan proposed. Steve, you got your hands up?
I second, Chair. Councillor Williams.
Okay. Right then, Steve, if you've got a question you want to ask, or is that hands up from previous?
I think he won't be able to vote, Chair, so he probably wants to give a verbal.
All right then. Okay, no worries. Can we vote on this then via the forms? And then Steve can give his verbal. Steve, would you like to give a verbal vote on this matter?
Yeah. Just one thing. On my system, my hand isn't raised,
Right.
and I'm for the change.
Okay, lovely.
That's moved, Chair.
Okay then, so we move on now to item 6 on the agenda. And I'd like to hand this over now to Councillor Shane Cook to introduce the report.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The Director of Performance Assessment lays out the performance of adults and children's services for the previous financial year. Yeah. As you'll be aware, 2020-2021 was particularly challenging given the pandemic, but despite this, there has been significant achievements. The report provides details of performance in a whole variety of areas such as adults, children's, customer intelligence and resources, and highlights 3 key achievements in 3 areas for improvement. It also provides a 4th quarter update on the wellbeing objective. Officers will be happy to answer any questions members may have. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, there is a recommendation on page 19 of your packs. And members are asked to review the attached document, Appendix 1, and discuss challenges and scrutinise the information contained within. Are there any questions? Hang on a second, I need to pop my screen over. I do apologise. Are there any questions? Right, Councillor Kevin Etheridge, you've got a question?
Yeah, I apologise if I missed this. 5.4C on the report. It refers to the underspend, says 50% into directorate and reserve. I'd like to ask Mr. Street, as I say, apologise if I missed it, how much is the underspend? The reason I'm asking that is because I've seen you've asked for quite a considerable sum on another agenda report for Pont-on-Fryth.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Councillor Etheridge. Mike, I'm aware Mike Jones is on the call. Can you remind me what the underspend was at the end of last year?
Bear with me a sec, I'll just double check.
I mean, you know, the concept of 50% of the directorate is retaining 50% of the underspend and 50% going into the corporate body is something that we've pretty much done since the inception of the authority. So there's an issue there. But as the report alludes, I mean, the big issue we had was we had an awful lot of grant funding thrown at us by Welsh Government very late in the last quarter. So our ability to spend that reserve was fairly limited. So, I mean, it does give us a little bit of flexibility now moving forward in terms of some of the things that perhaps we want to fund that we wouldn't ordinarily have been able to fund. But obviously accepting that this is a reserve, so really the money can only be spent once. It can't be spent on anything that's recurring.
And what I wanted to ask David as well, you've asked for, you're going back to cabinet for, you've asked about £1 million from the social services budget for Pond Comp, and that's why I'm asking about the underspend. Wouldn't it have been reasonable for social services, say, to keep 80% or 70% of the underspend and 30% go back into corporate services?
I mean, if I'm honest with you, Councillor Etheridge, I think it makes an awful lot of difference. I mean, 50% is what it's always been. I've never known any directorate deviate from that. And certainly for, we jump in reports now, but certainly when we get to the respite report, for a call on reserves of that size, it would need to go through cabinet anyway. So to a large degree, it doesn't make a lot of difference. Thank you. Mike, have you come up with that number for me yet?
Yeah, the underspend for 2020-21 was around 5.1 million.
So very roughly about 2.6 million of that would have stayed within the directorate reserve, with a balance going into corporate reserves.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so do we have any more questions on this report? No, I think, am I right in thinking, Kath, that this report is for noting that there's no vote on it?
That's correct, Chair. It's just a matter if members wanted to make any comments prior to the report going, just in terms of, it's just about monitoring and commenting on the performance. So if there's no comments particularly, it's just for noting.
Okay then, so I think we can move on to item 7 on the agenda, is that correct? Right, bear with me a second. I'm having to switch again between screens. Told you I needed a couple more screens, didn't I, Kath? Right, okay then. Item 7 is the annual report of the Director of Social Services and Housing for 2019-20 and 2020 to 2021. I'd like now to hand over to Councillor Shane Cook to introduce the report, then the author, Dave Street.
Thank you, Chair. This evening, the Director will present his annual reports for 2019-2020 and 2020 and 2021. Ordinarily, the Director's report is presented to Council October of each year. However, given an ongoing pandemic last year, local authorities were able to defer the report for 2019-2020 to this year, hence why 2 reports are being presented this evening. Following consideration by scrutiny, the reports will be presented to Council in October prior to submission to Care Inspectorate Wales, Welsh Government, and made available to the public on our website. Thank you.
Okay, Dave, is there anything you'd like to comment on your report?
Yeah, if I may, Chair, thank you very much. Very grateful, Shane, for the introduction. This is a statutory responsibility I have. Every year I have a legal responsibility to write an annual report. That annual report comes to scrutiny before it goes to Council and is then submitted onward to Welsh Government, Care Inspectorate Wales before it is put on our website and is made available to the public. As Shane's already alluded to, we're in a unique position this year in that you have 2 reports, 1920 and 2021. That was because really, if you recall that this time last year, we were in height to the first phase of the pandemic. And so to a degree, Care Inspectorate Wales cut us a little bit of slack by saying, you don't need to do a report next year, but we will want the report submitted in a year's time. I don't really intend to dwell on 2019-20. It seems an awful long time ago. And certainly the sort of world that we were occupying then is nothing like the world that we're occupying now. What I would like to do with your agreement is just take 5 minutes to dwell on the 2021 report, because I think there are a couple of key issues here. Firstly, you'll see in the introduction from my report on page 71. I think it's important I put on record again my gratitude to everyone in the social care sector, both our own employees and our independent and third sector partners, for their contribution during 2021. It's a year that none of us have seen the like of before, and the demands that placed on social care and on my colleagues and our partners were absolutely unprecedented. And the fact that we were able to come out of that financial year in the relatively strong position that we did says an awful lot around the work that was being done. Again, if you could turn to page 73, I've referenced there some of the things that we've had to do around workforce. Staff being redeployed out of their day job into other areas that weren't familiar with them, but were absolutely vital in terms of what we tried to achieve. The challenges that our independent sector partners face at the early start of the pandemic, real challenges around personal protective equipment, PPE, that really were only resolved as a result of some input from some of our corporate partners. And really the fragility of the whole residential and nursing care market, and indeed domiciliary care market through that period was a real worry. And the fact that we've come out in one piece is extremely encouraging. You'll be aware, all of you will be aware, the challenges that care homes faced during that pandemic, and the sacrifices and the commitment the staff made within those settings was absolutely had to be seen to be believed. And likewise, even our social care services were impacted on. In adult services, we looked at a Pangwent approach to the way the social workers operated. In children's services, what were traditional hands-on services, face-to-face meetings, suddenly had to be altered into virtual meetings, and that was very taxing for the staff concerned. And if I could particularly draw your attention to page 76 of the report, and that's support the carers. Very early on in the pandemic, we had to withdraw our day services provision. We were able to keep some of our respite care provision going to deal with emergency situations, but we'd be the first to admit that the changes that we had to make did have an impact on unpaid carers. And again, their sort of grace, their acceptance of those changes during the first wave are really welcome, and something we are extremely grateful for. I'd like to put on record my thanks to our own carers team. What they did was they made contact with those families on a weekly basis in some instances to make sure people were coping and whether we were able to support people in the community. Hospital discharge was a huge issue for us early on in the pandemic. We really had to clear the hospitals to make room for the pandemic, the COVID patients. That was done with a huge amount of efficiency, but at great cost to the individuals in terms of the time and commitment they had to show. Page 79 onward, I list our priorities going forward for 2021. I'm stringing together out. But just in closing, like I say, I'd like to put remind members of my gratitude to the whole workforce for everything that was achieved in an exceptional year. This report, should you endorse it this evening, does go on to council. When you see it at council, it will look a little more jazzy than it does tonight. Our graphics people will get hold of that and put some of the statistics and tables and pictures that we've got to really bring the document to life. So thank you for your time in terms of listening, and I'd be happy to take any questions the members might have.
Yeah, I've got some questions, but I'll let other members go first. I think the first question is coming from Councillor Kevin Etheridge. Kevin?
Right, thank you. David, if we look at 8.1, the medium-term finance plan.
Sorry, what page is that on, Kevin?
Sorry, that's on the report. 8.1 under financial implications.
Right, correct. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to ask you. Is reference there about enhanced grant funding from the Welsh Government. Obviously, you know, that is, you know, that is going to be reduced or stopped. I'd like to ask you what the implications of that will be for the directorate. And also the second point is the pressure on the revenue budget during the medium term. And will we, as a social services directorate, be able to cope in regard the financial pressures, or do you believe that you'll need to go back to Cabinet to ask for further finance? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. In terms of your first question, were we to lose all of that funding, the consequences would be significant. They would be significant, particularly on our independent sector partners. The independent sector residential provision received an extra £50 per place to reflect the sort of pressures that COVID brought on those. Likewise, domiciliary care providers were paid an extra £1 an hour. All of those monies really have enabled people to keep their heads above water through the pandemic. I think if that money was instantly just taken away, I think we would have real problems with the resilience of some of those providers, and I think some of those would potentially go out of business. I think on a more positive front, Welsh Government have indicated that funding will continue until the end of March 2022, and they have made a recent announcement about some recovery monies for social care in Wales. Now, we're waiting for the detail on that in terms of what the expectations are that are linked to that recovery money. But if my initial understandings prove correct, that will give us some flexibility as an authority to continue with some of those payments should we choose to do so. So it's a promising picture at the moment. In terms of the revenue budget for the current year, will we be able to cope? I think the answer I can give you is I hope so. We are having some absolute acute pressures at the moment in children's services, and I know Gareth is on the call. Joe is on leave. I should have said that at the start. Apologies. In adult services, our challenges at the moment are slightly different. They're not necessarily financial. They relate to capacity and workforce. So at the moment, I'm not absolutely certain of the consequence of that financially. And I think that's why it's so important that at our next meeting, we actually get to discuss the month 5 budget report as just opposed to receiving it as an information item. But I suppose, you know, I don't want to preempt other reports that we're going to talk about in future meetings. But, you know, it's really, really important we don't talk about COVID in the past tense. We are still dealing with the sort of challenges and pressures from COVID today, tomorrow and the next day. So it remains an area we can't take our eye off, really.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Charlotte Bishop, you got a question?
Hi, yes. Dave, page 79 refers to the training now commencing for staff. I'm just wondering how you're going to cope with the additional pressures. Obviously, lists are now increasing, and if the Welsh Government do release the delay of transfer of care back to you, will the training be in place before that happens?
That's a really good question. It's our intention for it to take place. I'll be perfectly frank, with the pressures that we're facing workforce-wise at the moment, that wouldn't be the first priority. The first priority would be service delivery. I mean, detox is an interesting one. I mean, all that's gone away on detox is actually the measure, the indicator. So the pressure in terms of getting people out of hospital certainly hasn't gone away. In fact, it is probably more acute now than it's been at any point in my career as a director. So, you know, our intention is for the training to be prioritised, but I would be misleading you if I said that was our top priority. It's not. The top priority is delivering the care service.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Etheridge, do you have another question because your hand is still showing up?
No, sorry, I'll remove it now.
Okay, yeah, I just got a couple of queries for you, Dave. The first query is on page 46, And it's right at the bottom of the page where it says percentage of looked after children who have experienced one or more changes to school during a period or periods of being looked after. Now, I know this was 1920, but 12%, that's quite high. What's the reason behind these school changes? Is it because they've moved foster care, or, is there been issues with particular schools?
With your agreement, Chair, could I bring Gareth in on that point?
Yeah, no problem.
Yep. Thank you both. I can assure committee that we only ever change schools when we absolutely have to. We've got a good track record of maintaining children in their schools, even if their placements are some distance away from the school. So we provide transport, we provide taxis, all the foster carers transport, and we fund that because we realise that maintaining school is really important for a child in terms of giving them stability. So it can be traumatic enough coming into care without them having to lose everything that you're doing in school as well. So we do our very utmost to keep children in the schools that they're in, but then at appropriate times, so usually at the end of a term, we'll review that, particularly if a child is in a long-term foster placement, because very often children want to make friends in the locality, and they start to put pressure on us actually to say, I want to go to school with my friends that I play with in the street, kind of thing. So it actually works out really well that we plan that, and we do it at an appropriate time. So we don't just move children when a foster placement changes. We actually give them time to settle, and in some respects give them some element of choice as well.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, there was no real detrimental issues in regards to that 12%, for children, because that would be awful for them if they are suffering certain issues. Right, the other question I've actually got anyway is on page 49. It's under the complaints. I don't know if you can answer this, Steve, and I do apologize, Dave, sorry. I do apologize, there's about motorbikes skidding up and down the street. You've got, of the 144 complaints received at stage 1 in 2019-20, the following outcomes were noted. Now, I'd like to know about the 9 complaints that were upheld and the 14 complaints which were partially upheld. Could you explain that, please?
Simple answer there is no, I can't offhand, Chair. As I said, this was in 1920. Sorry, Gareth.
Sorry, because complaint sits in children's services. Do you want me to pick that up?
Yeah, absolutely, that'd be fine.
Yeah. So corporate, not corporate. Social services complaints sits within children's services, so comes under my line management. When we talk about complaints that are upheld and complaints that were partially upheld, we're talking about the issues that are being raised by complainants. Sometimes there are several in one complaint. So a complainant, what they want to complain about isn't just one issue. Very often, it's a series of issues. Sometimes it can be multiple issues in the one complaint. So what that refers to is the number of issues within complaints that are upheld. So in real terms, we're not talking about 9 and 14 individual complaints. We're talking about issues within a smaller number of complaints. And on the top of my head, I'm going to say it's about 7 from my recollection at that time of complaints. And of those complaints, the issues that were in there, some were upheld and some were partially upheld. Wherever there's an upheld issue or a partially upheld issue, we look to the learning from that, and we look to identify what we could do to improve things as a result of that. And we give feedback to the complainant on what action that we're going to take as a result of that. So we close the loop in that sense. So we make sure that the complainant is aware of the difference that the issues that they've raised are making to us in terms of our practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just to clarify then, so within one complainant could have 5 complaints, and these complaints are detailed as the 144 complaints, not 144 complainants.
No, the 144 are the complainants.
Right.
So we had 144 separate issues.
Right.
I know what you're going to say now, because it does add up, doesn't it? 14, 30, 39. actually adds up to
140. Is it?
Yeah. So it's slightly off, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yes, very often the complaint, particularly if I talk about children's services, for instance, a parent may complain about some action that we've taken, and they'll break that down into 3 or 4 different issues that they want us to investigate. Now, some of those can be grouped together because they're very similar, and sometimes they have to be looked at separately because even though it relates to one issue, the investigation that we need to undertake needs to look into different areas.
Okay. All right, thanks. Okay, I think item 7, am I right in saying, Kath, that this is for noting?
Yes,
Hello?
Chair, because obviously, as Dave Street said, this report is going on to council, so just whether members wanted to comment on it. I see Councillor Skivens has got raised his hand
Yeah,
as well.
I'm just going to say that. I think, Steve, you've got a comment, or are you on the voting or something?
No. I've got a question. It's a general question, really. We have touched on this in previous meetings in relation to homelessness. Where are those statistics recorded? Like a lot of the causation and triggers will be in the realm of social services. Is this recorded in under housing? Because obviously, as a result of COVID, this is a growth, unfortunately, a growth area. And it's not clear. Like, I know that the county has provided statistics to the Senedd, but it's not easy for for myself to find them, or I'm not even clear where these are actually published.
Yeah, they sit and
say something on there, Dave. I think this is actually under housing issue. I don't know what the social aspects are, but I know I'm on housing and regen, Steve, and we do have that brought up at housing about homelessness. So I don't know if there's any other comment you'd like to make on that, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, if you let me know what you're looking for, Councillor Skivens, I'll speak to Kerry Denham in our homelessness section, and we'll get that to you. But as Councillor Cushing's related to it, goes to regen and housing. That's where that gets reported.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, I think now, as we've, is there any further questions before I move on regarding this matter? And Steve is still showing your hand up. I know you said it doesn't look it on your particular screen, so I assume that your question, lovely. Right, can we go on then now, because it's for noting, on to item 8 of the agenda. Bear with me again. Right, okay. It's proposal to develop 2 new respite facilities. I'd like now to hand this over to Councillor Shane Cook to introduce the report.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm going to gamble by you and turn my camera on, so I might get kicked out.
We might lose you now.
Here we go. Yep, I'm working fine. Thanks, Chair. The attached report seeks the views of members regarding the proposal to 2 new respite facilities, one for adults and another for children. It provides background on existing provision and why this development is deemed necessary. This will be the first of a number of reports brought to scrutiny as the facility develops. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions on this report, please? Yeah, I think Councillor Etheridge, you had your hand up, but then it just disappeared.
Yeah, I'm used to doing that. The question is obviously about the financial aspect here, and I don't want to be negative about this. That's all I want really is a breakdown of the further £1 million from the social services budget. How was that arrived at? And I don't want this in writing, just verbally, because I see that, as I said, Cabinet have already allocated 4.3 million, but quite a bit of that I assume has gone to Trinity Fields, which is fine, a much needed facility. But I just wanted a breakdown really of how you arrived at that 1 million additional figure for Pont Fife. Thank you.
Yeah, very simply, if you turn to paragraph 8.1 of the report on page 86, There's a breakdown there. You can see the current estimated cost is around 4.6 million. Now, again, with all these things, and members will know how difficult it is to look at certainly the future costs of any building project you undertake, and certainly that's the case at the moment, but that is our best guess at the moment. And then you will see to the left of that figure how the 3.6 million that we currently have the funding available, and really is the difference between the two. So we've got 3.6 million available. We reckon we'll need somewhere in the region of 4.6. So that £1 million deficit would seem to me to be a very logical call against the service reserves rather, that we have. As I said a little bit earlier, the service reserves, they can only be spent once. So, you know, that sort of one-off expenditure of this nature is really what we're looking for. The report hopefully outlines to you why we think there's a need for a new respite facility. Personally, I'm quite excited by it because in my 9 years as a director, this will be the first thing that we've ever done new, which will show the sort of challenges that we've had over those 9 years. But, you know, what Shane alluded to there, and I'd like to reassure members, is this is the first of several reports you will get on this respite centre. So should we get agreement for Cabinet and we begin to move down that road of development and greater consultation, we will be coming back to you at regular intervals on this one because it's really, really important.
Could I say, Chair, I'm not opposed to it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd just like to add a comment there, Dave, with raising building costs. Might we see a claim further down the line for additional funding? Because I know everybody's saying about how building costs are going up and up and up. And have you made any proviso within that the report for additional funds if so required?
No, we haven't, but it's an extremely fair point, Chair. Putting my housing hat on, it is something we are seeing across the board at the moment, not just around the price of materials, but their availability as well. A little bit of light at the end of the tunnel this morning. I attended a housing meeting with Welsh Government, and apparently industry estimates now is that the costs of materials is likely to peak in the next 2 to 3 months. That doesn't mean, of course, that we won't be looking for further provision. So I think your point is well made. And I think when we do take this into Cabinet, it would probably make sense for me to put a sort of paragraph into that effect, really.
Yeah, and I think Kevin made the point earlier on under another report regarding the money that went into reserves. Maybe we should have kept a little bit more back to actually put forward for this, and then you wouldn't be asking so much out of the reserves.
Yeah, I mean,
I know it's traditional, 50%, but we could always break with tradition if it's so needed.
We could. I mean, but I suspect, you know, what I will be doing if I do need to go back is obviously I'll be pointing out that 50% that did go back into corporate reserves. You know, benefit of hindsight's a wonderful thing. I mean, the 50% is something the council's always done. I don't think it's hugely problematic.
Yeah. Okay, then I think we need now to take a vote on this particular matter. The recommendation, which is on page 84 of your packs, members of the Scrutiny Committee are asked to consider and comment upon the proposal to develop 2 new respite facilities, one for adult and one for children, co-located in Pont-Llanfraith. Endorse a recommendation to Cabinet that a further £1,436 be allocated to the project from Social Services reserves. Can I have somebody to move and second the report, please?
I'll move, Chair.
I'll second.
Okay, then can we go to forms then and either vote for, against, or abstain and submit, please?
Councillor Skivins for.
Okay, are we all voted now, Kath?
Yeah, that's moved by a majority, Chair.
Okay, that's lovely. Now we're going to move on to item. Sorry. Right. Can we now move on to item 9, which is to appointment of co-opted member, Social Services Scrutiny Committee. Now, I am actually abstaining from this for a personal prejudicial view, and I'd like to hand over to Kath Forbes Thompson, Scrutiny Manager.
Thank you, Chair. I will take my camera on just to see if it works today. Just to remind members, at the meeting in the summer, we agreed to set up an appointment subcommittee to appoint the vacancy of the Social Services Co-opted Member Committee. As members will recall, it was agreed that the Vice Chair, Councillor Carmen Brzezina, Councillor Mark Evans and Councillor Charlotte Bishop would sit on the subcommittee. The subcommittee subsequently met and agreed the shortlisting of the 3 candidates and agreed to interview all 3. We held interviews in July, and subsequently they just to explain the process, they followed a standard recruitment procedure. There was a set number of questions. Each member of the panel scored the responses from the 3 candidates, and at the end they met separately then, and they agreed unanimously who would be recommended for appointment. Because Pat Cook and Judith Pritchard both were excellent candidates. They were very close in terms of the voting outcomes. They subsequently made a recommendation that Pat Cook be appointed to the vacant co-opted member position, but they also recommended that Judith Pritchard be retained in reserve should the position become vacant in future. I'd like members to note that all the co-opted members' positions term of office will run out in May 2022 because they are coterminous with the local authority members. So what we will be doing, this position will run until May 2022, and then what we'll have to do then is after the elections is run the recruitment process for all 3 vacancies, and then obviously the current people who sit as co-opted members can be renominated. There's no restriction on that. So this vacancy is recommended at 3.1 that Pat Cook is appointed to the vacant co-opted member position, and 3.2 that Judith Pritchard is retained as reserve co-opted member. Do members have any questions?
Can I just say there's a comment that's come up in the bubble from Councillor Ariana Leonard saying that she couldn't seem to vote or speak. Just want to record I wanted to vote for. I presume that was for the last item. I don't know if she voted on that.
It was a majority, Chair, so I'll make a note of that as well.
Okay, then, lovely. I think we have a question from Michelle.
Just a quick one. It was 2 little things really. One was the new person that's been co-opted on. Is it possible to know what her area of knowledge is to be able to sort of understand the role that she's going to be playing and how she's going to
this person's been a long-term carer, so she's provided care to a disabled relative for a long period of time, and I think the members of the panel felt it would be very helpful for the committee to have somebody who's got that life experience of looking after somebody day in, day out and accessing care services.
I totally agree. And is that for is she cares for an adult, yeah?
That's correct, yeah.
Cool. And I also just needed to mention, because I think I should mention it, that we mentioned it in the pre-meeting, that as I'm going through a process of I'm actually going through a retirement process at the moment. I'll be stepping down from this role in probably December will be my last meeting. However, I know that we probably wouldn't recruit to that until May, and I can understand that because it's a very short time. However, can I just note that it would be really important, I think, to take into account the need for support for families and children's services as well. Just wanted to say that, so that otherwise I'll go and it'll be on my mind.
Yeah, I mean, what we would do is, with the agreement of the committee, we would probably follow the same procedure. we would bring a report to the first meeting of the Social Services Scrutiny Committee after the elections, asking them to whether they agree with the process, appointing an appointment subcommittee again, and then seek nominations through Garvo and the organisations in the area. And then, excuse me, and then the committee then would decide whether the appointments committee would decide who they feel is appropriate in terms of providing necessary skills and knowledge for the committee.
Thanks very much.
So if there's no question.
Sorry, I think we need to have a party when Michelle retires.
Oh, that doesn't sound very good. You'll be so pleased to see the back of me.
Oh, no, as a celebration of what you've done, Michelle. I didn't mean it like that.
I'm only teasing. I'm only teasing. Thank you.
Sorry,
lovely. I love it.
Chair, if you're happy, then if members have no questions, we're happy to take this to be moved and seconded for voted on 3.1 and 3.2.
Yeah, would somebody like to move and second, please? I'm going to have to abstain from the voting.
I'll move it, Chair.
Second.
Councillor Williams, you declared an interest. Perhaps somebody else wants to move it.
I'll move it. That's fine.
Thank you.
I didn't move it.
Oh, sorry, I can't see people's faces, see, so I don't know who's speaking.
No.
Thank you. Because people vote, please.
Councillor Skivins for.
Thank you. That's moved, Chair.
Okay, that's lovely. Well, thank you, everyone. I think we've come to the end of the meeting now. So if you'd like to stop the recording, and I'd like to wish everyone, thank you for your attendance this evening. And I'm glad it went quite well, this meeting. And I'll see you again now in the October meeting. Okay, thank you very much.